All right, in this video tutorial, we're going to be talking about blocks with attributes. So blocks with attributes is really just a block, right, which is just a grouping of lines and arcs and various line segments. And we're now attaching or embedding information. So that information are known as attributes, and they can be hidden or visible. And they can be preset, and it's something that we can use later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go over the exact assignment, but I'm going to do something similar to the assignment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my line tool. Actually, I'll use a polyline. And I'm going to draw a jersey, like a soccer jersey type thing. So I'm just going to come across, and I'll just kind of fake the neckline here. And again, this is just a representation, which some blocks shouldn't be a problem. Other blocks, we don't want representations, but we want the exact, right? So okay, a little bit lopsided, that's okay. I can go ahead and change some of this information. Maybe do something like that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. All right, so I've got a polyline, right? So I drew this with a polyline just so I had one continuous line. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over, highlight everything, and put it onto the zero layer, right? So it's not a block just yet. And it is a jersey. Now, the biggest thing when creating blocks is figuring out the size of text. That's probably the biggest issue with blocks, is figuring out your text size, because block information or attribute information that live inside the blocks live in model space. So if you have a lot of block information and you decide to put that information in paper space, it's not going to be visible. All right. So the biggest thing right now is to figure out, and I'm going to use my text, and if this is going to be player jerseys, so I might want to have one text box. So this is going to be player name, left click outside, select it, kind of get it centered, and then I'm just going to Control C and Control V, right? Just a general copy and paste. And this is usually some sort of number, and I'm going to just place the number 12, and I'm going to increase the size of this text box because they're usually fairly large. So here I want to start playing around. I got a 0.2. Let me just make it 1 inch and see how big. There we go. So 1 inch looks good. And I'm just going to control and use the cursor to kind of nudge that over. All right, so I've got 1 inch for the number, and let's see, double click on there to see, and I got 0.2 for my name. So when you guys are doing your assignment, your exercise, make sure that you have, a good text size figured out for yourselves. Okay. So now that I've kind of, put this in play or figured this out, I'm going to move that to the side temporarily. So that way I have a reference just in case I need it still. And I'm going to now turn on my zero layer, right? Because everything should be on my zero layer. And I'm going to head over to the Insert tab to actually creating my attributes. So under the block definition window, we have define attributes. So I'm going to click on define attributes. That's that little shopping tag. And we've got some options here. We have mode options, we have insertion point options, we have attribute options, and then text settings, right? So I don't want to lock the position, because if I ever needed to rotate the block itself, I wouldn't be able to rotate the text. And depending on what it is that you're creating this block for, that might not be possible, and you might want it to be flexible. So, and also, do I want it invisible? No, I want to be able to see this information. There might be some parts that I would want invisible, and I could definitely bring them back in another view, right? So that's really up to you. But basically, invisible makes the attribute invisible, obviously when you first put it in. Constant is going to give a fixed, like it says, give attribute a fixed value for block insertions. So basically, you are inputting what's going to be inside, and it's not going to change. Verify, it kind of does like that email thing where it asks you to type it in twice to verify that that is the value that you want, whatever that might be. Preset, you can put in like a little preset. You can put in, for instance, if there are options, just so that you give the drafter or whoever is going to be using that block an idea of what you might be putting inside. Okay, and then obviously lock position. It locks the attribute in accordance to its location and size to your block. And multiple lines just allows you to fill in multiple lines of text. So all of these are pretty much a one-liner. All right, so I'm going to leave none of these checked on. And let's see. Well, maybe I'll do it this way. I'll make an invisible one. How about that? I'll make one invisible, and I'm going to click into the tag. And this is important because without the tag, you're going to be kind of clueless as to what we're doing. So I'm going to make the team name invisible. So I'm going to say team. And the prompt, a lot of people actually skip the prompt, but it does help if, especially if you're not the one that's going to be filling in the information. So I usually type in a small little question: what team do they play for? Question mark. Right, and then the default, I like to put in a pound or a hashtag. Or a number sign or something, maybe even dollar signs or something, just to represent that there's a placeholder there. Okay, so then we go into the text settings and the justification, left side, standard, all of this is good. The text size, right? So I'm going to go hit OK. And you see that I've got the word team, which is the tag. And I'm going to bring that right down to the bottom left here. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not getting my OSNAP. So that'll be the team. And next, I go back to define attributes for my next tag. Now, this one I'm not going to have invisible. And the tag is going to be player name. And the prompt is, what is the last name of the player? Question mark. And I'm going to say, again, hashtag. And the player name, I think we were okay with the 0.2, right? So I'm going to click OK. Oh, tag may not contain spaces. That's right. So this has to be a no space deal. So in that case, I'm going to go in between and I'll put an underscore, or you can just leave it as a single, run on, if you will. And now I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to do player name right up here. There we go. Zoom out a little bit. And then finally do another tag, right? And just keep repeating this process. So the next tab is going to be player number. So player underscore number. And the prompt is, what is the player's we'll do jersey number. And the default will be, again, a number sign. And this time we want to make sure that the text height is 1 inch. So we're going to change that. And we're going to click OK. And I'm going to place that right about here. So now obviously the tag is huge compared to what the number should actually be, right? But again, we're only seeing the tag information, right? So this is how you know that everything is going well. So I'm going to erase my little samples here. So we've got our tags, right? And if we were to save this drawing and insert it into another drawing, then yes, it would create it would create our block with attributes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this. So I'm going to select it all just so you can see and do a Control C, Control V. And this is kind of what happens. So we have this enter attributes option. What is the player's jersey number? What is the last name of the player? And what team do they play for? So, and this is kind of one way how you would fill in that information. Actually, let me cancel this. I'll cancel that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a proper block. Right? So I'm going to type the word block, make it a local block. And I'm going to call this team jersey. And I want to pick my base point. So for that, I'm going to say right about there, and that's okay. And then I'm going to select objects. And I want to make sure that I select everything, including the attributes. All right, so everything is selected, including the attributes. I hit enter. Yes, I want to convert it to a block. I want to allow exploding. None of this changes. And I hit OK. So now here we go. What is the player's jersey number? So I'm going to say number 11. And what is the last name of the player? I'm going to erase that. And I'm just going to say Messi. I know he's not number 11. He's number 10, but that's okay. And then what team do they play for? So I'm going to say Argentina. I'll go with the country national team, and I'm going to click OK. So now what we have is a block with attributes. And I'm going to kind of click once, and you can see that I can select some of the attribute information here. And I'm going to move that in, and it looks like this top one, oh, that's the insertion point, right? So I can click on a number and kind of move that attribute, move it down, move it up, left, right, wherever I need to. And you'll notice that the Argentina, or the invisible one, is missing. It's well, not missing, but it's invisible. So what we can do to see this information is we can go up to block, and that's in the first section. And I can click on retain attribute display drop down. Right? There's a little arrow there that means that it's a drop down. And I've got three options: display all attributes. Right? So if I do that, then I see that invisible information. And if I go back to that spot and I say hide all attributes, all the attribute information is hidden. And if I bring it back to retain attribute display, then it brings it back to the original settings. Okay, so I've got 2 bits of information, 1 piece that is hidden information. And this is now a block. So what I can do with this block is I can click on it. And I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to say Copy. And I'm going to click on just a base point, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and hit Escape. So now that I have a block with attributes, the easy thing, or the cool thing about this, is that you can double click on the block. Okay, and if you remember, if there were no attributes and you double clicked on the block, it would open up the block editor. Now that we have attributes, double clicking on a block will actually open up the attribute editor. Right, so I can go into my selected jersey, which was that second one, and I can click on the appropriate tag and or the value and change the value in the value box. So maybe, he's going to be number 10, and I shouldn't use 10. I'm just going to make up numbers. So I'm going to say 20, and I'm just going to put player 1, right? So I'm going to hit apply. And you can see that taking effect, right? So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to go to the third one. So now that these are blocks, right, double click. Now that these are blocks with attributes, it's very easy to change all the information. So the player jersey number, maybe he's going to be a 7, and So I'm just going to say striker and hit apply. All right, so we've got that information now. And you also have the option to change all of the different elements of each. So for instance, the striker, right? The striker information, I can change the text options in that second tab. So maybe it's not left justified, but it's center justified, right? So I can see the name changing, but I'm going to keep it left justified. I can change the text style on it. I can change the height of that particular one. I can also go into the properties and possibly change the layer that it's on. So maybe if I were to change it to my object layer, it changes colors, right? And I can hit apply and OK. So there's a lot of individuality that you can do and flexibility, which also comes with more confusion if you're trying to figure out, why is this a different color, why it might be, with different settings. So that's what you just have to be careful. So I'm going to say number 19, and we'll call him just player 2. How about that? Just player 2, and click OK. So now that I've got all of this information, I can, forward this information on, and it looks just like regular text, right? But the difference is now is that these attributes can be used for a data extraction, which is what you'll be doing in part 2 of your assignment. So part 2 of your assignment is the data extraction. The data extraction is basically asking you to make sure that you save your drawing. So I'm going to go to my desktop, my CAD 100, and let's see, I'm going to save this as Team Jersey, and I'll save that. And to do a data extraction, I'm going to go to the Annotate tab, and under the Annotate tab, I'm going to go to the Tables portion, and there's a little spot here that says Extract Data, and it's basically following the prompts. And just read the prompts carefully so that you understand them. What we want to do is we want to create a new data extraction. So we don't have one right now. So it's going to ask us to save a file before we create one. All right, so I'm going to click Next under Create, and it's going to bring us to a folder. So make sure that you're in the correct folder. So I'm in my CAD 100 2020 folder, and you can see that it's a DXE file, a completely different file format, but I'm going to call it Team Jerseys, right? So Team Jersey data, and you can call it whatever you want, right? So I'm going to hit save. Okay, and now it knows that it's going to be saving at a certain location on my hard drive. And then what's the data source? The drawing or the sheet set, including the current drawing, or are we selecting certain objects in the current drawing? So if we do this, then we're picking select items to pull the attributes from. Otherwise, we're going to do the entire drawing. So I'm just going to keep that radio button checked on for drawings and sheet set, and I'm going to go to Next. And then we have to start filtering. So display options, I'm going to take away display all object types, and I'm going to say display blocks with attributes only, right? And let's see, currently in use only. Yeah, we can leave that on. And display blocks only. All right, so that's what we want. We want display blocks only, this deselected, and then these two can be selected. So I'm going to click Next. And again, we kind of filter out the information that we need because it sees a lot of geometry, it sees a lot of other things. So we want to take out the miscellaneous, the geometry, the general, the drawing, and the 3D visualization. We only want to see what the attributes are, right? So it locates all the attributes and it finds everything that we used as a tag, including the attribute. So those are the ones that we want, and I'm going to click Next. And now we sort of see, the information. So we have a count in case there are doubles or whatnot. So I don't want to see the count, so I'm going to deselect show the count column. The name, right? The name of the block is Team Jersey. So I don't know if I really need to see the column unless you have different types of blocks. Then you might want to see what block that information came from. So that's up to you, right? Combining identical rows. So then we're left with player name, player number, and team, right? So maybe we want to sort. We can link external data. We can sort column options. We can have a full preview. But basically, we can click in here. I'm going to left click on player number. And it sorts it to some extent. There we go. I clicked it again. Well, at least it started with that. So it looks like it's picking up the player name information. So if I wanted to sort by the numbers, I'm going to go in here to sort column options, and I'm going to say player number in ascending order. And then the next column would be the player name in ascending order, and I'm going to click OK. Oops, I might have done that backwards. Maybe I want descending. So player number descending, right? And that's the cool thing. You can go in here and change that information, but we want the player number to be first, and then we have all the striker information or the player name information and the team that's left over. Next is we hit the next button and we come to our final output almost. So the output options, how do we want to show this data? We have two check boxes. The first one is insert data extraction table into the drawing. And the second one is output data to an external file. If you do that, then again, you have to hit the ellipsis and you'll have to locate where you want to place that file, and you can do so using Excel. All right, that's an Excel spreadsheet. MDB is for Access, which is again Microsoft Access. It's a spreadsheet and forms type of program. CSV is also, that can be Microsoft Excel, and then text, right? So we have like a Word file almost. So those are the options. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to do that. So I'm going to, or you can do both, literally, if you select both. But we're just going to do insert data extraction into the table. So once I check that, I click next. It's going to give me a little preview. If I want any other table settings, do I want a title? You know, maybe I'll enter a title. I'll just say Team Jerseys, right? And then use next and finish. And then what it does is it gives me a little box, and I'm going to left click to place it there, and there's my information. It pulled all of that information from the attribute data, right? So basically what I would do is I would have one layout, layout one. I'm going to double left click, and I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in. This doesn't have to be scaled, okay, but I'm going to do Z enter, W enter for a window, and I'll just create a window right outside of this here, like so. That zooms in pretty much on that window space. Double left click outside. Then I can title. Scale is going to be NTS, right, for not to scale. NTS, not to scale. And I change the title name, change the date, and you have your data information, right? For the second part, you're going to double click in here, and you're going to want to zoom in to the jerseys, or obviously whatever the assignment is, and make sure that you set this up for your B-size paper. So if you forgot how to do that, you're going to go to Layout 2, you're going to right click, you're going to go to the Page Setup Manager, left click, and you're going to modify. So we're going to modify that. We're going to choose our printer, which I believe was the general AutoCAD PDF general documentation, or the high end, right? And we want to make sure the plot style table is set to monochrome, and we're going to change the paper size to 11 by 17, but because there are a couple of different ones, we want to make sure we get the correct one. So let's see, ANSI full bleed, 8.5 by 11. I'm going to click on that one just temporarily. Let me see if I can find another one that makes more sense. ANSI B. All right, ANSI B 11 by 17 is probably the better choice here. And I'm going to preview this to see what it looks like. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I might have to change some other information on it, but I'm going to click OK and close. And the dotted line looks good on this one. Now again, we just made this 11 by 17 B size, so that means I can stretch out my my floating model here, floating model space. Double click inside and turn off the grid. Double click again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to layout 1. And I'm going to be very careful with what I select because I don't want to select the viewport back here. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click and make a window and select the entire title block. And then I'm going to zoom in real close and select the border only. And I'm going to Control C, right, to copy that information. Go to my layout 2 and Control V to paste that information. And then I'm going to click on it. And my title block is generally in the right section here. And I want to be careful with because those do not, or the border rather, does not have, it doesn't have the information for the corner grips. It does, but it'll skew everything. So I want to use the side grips or the center grips for this purpose here. And I'm going to place that all on the inside. That looks good. And again, that's my viewport. I want to make sure my viewport is on the VP layer so that it doesn't print. And this I can grab by the corners. Just place it outside, just outside of that dotted line. There we go. And double click inside. And if this were to be my jerseys, then I place my jerseys like so. And again, fill out my information in the title block. Now I've got a B size and an A size layout, right? So if you do this to layout 2 in your template file, layout 1 will always be A size, layout 2 will always be B size. So if you're brave enough to do that in your template, go ahead and do that in your template. And I'm just going to give this a quick preview print. It's outdated. Let's just say update and continue to plot. And now I'm going to check out my preview to see what it looks like. All right, so the sides look pretty good. Top and bottom look pretty good. It's centered. It's a nice clean drawing. It's got what it needs. So I am happy with this. And I would save that and go ahead and print it and save it to PDF. And that's part 1 and part 2.